The music world moves fast. Want to stay up to date on the latest albums and get in-depth examinations with the artists? Check out Consequence of Sound, the podcast. Bite-sized album reviews for the music fan on the go who wants to stay in the know, and much more. Subscribe to the series on iTunes or your favorite podcast provider, and let the writers of Consequence of Sound steer you right. Check it out at consequenceofsound.net/COS podcast. Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. If you're not already a subscriber to the series, I hope you do hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening from today, and that might be YouTube or Spotify. You can also, of course, subscribe anywhere you get your favorite podcast from, like iTunes and Apple Podcasts. And if you do grab it there, please do give a rating, leave a review as well. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, Michael Shuman, also known as Mikey Shoes, from the band Many Mansions. We're going to be talking about the brand new record called Guy Walks Into a Bar. It's a concept record, written and recorded in real time with all the highs and lows of a relationship. I'm reading that from the press release. But we do get really deep into exactly what that means, how it directed his writing and affected everything down to even the track list of the album. We'll talk about collaborating with Alison Mosshart of Dead Weather and The Kills on one of the tracks called Hey Lover, bringing his Queens of the Stone Age bandmate Jon Theodore in to drum on this album, and getting a slight Queens update while we're at it. And also how this all falls on the 10th anniversary of the band. We'll jump back to 2009 to get his update on how that debut EP sounds to him these days, and what it was like backing up the band Sparks in 2017. Talking about this great record called Guy Walks Into a Bar, it's Kyle Meredith with Many Mansions.
Hey, man.
Many Mansions, Guy Walks Into a Bar. A fantastic title. I almost want to start in a trivial side here to say, is there a favorite ending to that joke for you?
You know, we were talking about that the other day, is that we should have, like, a whole slew of our favorite jokes, and we don't, and it's kind of ridiculous and stupid on our part. And I guess a guy walks into a bar and he says, "Ouch."
That's it. Yeah, I know that one. That's a classic. That's almost as classic as, wrecked him, damn near killed him, which doesn't even have. It's only the punchline.
Wow. That's like my mom's version.
I was watching it's just so off topic. I was watching the Chris Farley documentary that Hulu had just put up over the weekend, and he uses that one in Tommy Boy, I think, and it's still love it every time. Well, on to the actual business. So this was preceded by last year's EP, Works Every Time. Do the two work together, or is it sort of a part A, part B, or are these looked at as separate?
We actually made the full record, Guy Walks Into a Bar, before we recorded the EP. So I guess the EP could be kind of a continuation, but it's all, based on the same, content. And Works Every Time is actually on the record as well. So they all kind of bleed into each other, and they're all kind of about love and relationship and the ups and downs and the beginnings and breakups of a relationship.
As the press release talks about, I think it words it like written and recorded in real time with those highs and lows of a relationship. I started thinking, like, as I assume from the songs I've heard, the relationship did end, but had it not, would this have been a different record?
100%. Like I said, the real time thing, it's like, I had never done anything like that before, and I didn't intend to do anything like that before, but because all the content was just like kind of flowing out and was happening day to day, which made it actually very easy to write because I didn't really have to think about it too much, that's what kind of led to this being from beginning to end chronological story. Yeah, I guess it would have just been all like fun, happy times if it didn't end. Yeah.
You get a song like "I'm in Love," though, which is sort of screaming happiness in a way. I wondered how the other guys react, to a song like that in comparison to what you all had done in the past. It just feels very different.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like that one, I basically just demoed it all and had it done before. A lot of times in the past with the band, we would get together and there's a lot more like back and forth and actually like building all the music up and then doing lyrics later. But that one was so specific and there was no there's not really any room for penetration from anybody else, because it was so real and immediate. But I mean, it was kind of like, sorry, this is how it is. And I mean, luckily it's a good song and everyone, stood behind it and knew what I was going through and believed in it. So that's all that matters, really.
I mean, writing's cathartic anyway, but is there anything that you felt you had to stay away from in this? You talk about it being very, very honest, but was there stuff that still, I got to keep that one in my pocket?
Not really, man. The only thing I wouldn't do is name names. I think that's kind of a no-no because it is someone real and someone's real feelings. And this person actually knows about it, and I've talked to her about it. She knows basically there's a record about her. So it's a tough one, and it's I got to be very delicate with how I put it out in the world, but at the same time, keep it real. And I'm really proud that it's as real as it is.
That's always the gamble, right? If you date a musician, there's a chance that you're going to end up in a song, for better or worse.
I mean, some people date musicians just for that chance.
Well, that part's horrible. That's the really far bad part right there.
Yeah, that's scary, actually.
I did actually read that there was one song on here that you said it was a tough call. Not that you backed away, but it was a tough call to put on the record. And that's the end of it, right? With tears in her eyes.
Yeah, that's right. I guess mostly it was because the other guys in the band just didn't fully, I think, believe or understand that song. But it was really important for me that it closed the record because it really was the last song I wrote for that record and ended it perfectly. And I just felt like it needed to be on there to be complete. Otherwise, it would have felt a little like up in the air. So that was tough. And, because you want everyone to be happy and high-five each other at the end of the record-making process. That was it. But we figured it out, and everyone musically contributed and got it to a spot where everyone was happy.
It's interesting, with a concept like this and with, this, you wouldn't have to think about the track listing if you wouldn't want to. I mean, it all just kind of is what it already sits in place of what it was going to be. Exactly.
That's why this was maybe the easiest record I've ever made, because halfway through the record, it was making it. It was like, oh, we figured it out. It's already done. Sequencing's done. The album title came, kind of like maybe a quarter way through making the record. So it was just like, it's all makes sense. It's all here. We know what the cover should be like. It was the hardest and easiest record to make, I think.
With Hey Lover, of course, you tapped Alison Mosshart, which we're all big fans of. Do you know how she felt about playing the other half of this story?
I don't think we ever talked about it, and she didn't know that person, the ex. But we didn't talk about I guess the role of it. But we did talk about she brought up that you need to be delicate and put care into making sure that these words that I wrote get across in the right way and with the right sentiment, the right emotion behind them. So that's kind of what we discussed the most, and I fully entrusted in her to do that because she's brilliant. But no, we didn't. She's not like the villain. She's not the villain or whatever character played it out.
It's such a good song. I mean, the movements, the bridge in that is so cool. How that works in that song. I mean, it's so sort of unexpected, I guess, in a way, the way it's going. And of course, the video. It's for something so simple. Of course, I just want to adjust the damn tracking the entire time, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think that was like, I think the cheapest and easiest video we ever made too. And because the thing with video is like all you need is one good idea. And you don't really need a lot of money or production to connect with people at that level. And because it was literally just going off of the lyrics that are already there, it was easy and fun. And we didn't even have to be in the same city to shoot it.
I do. I'm so happy that, I feel like music videos are important once again, because I know we almost lost them there for a second, and they seem really important to what you all are doing, especially with the last record and how you presented that. Do you all want to go further down that? I mean, is there a bigger film concept that you want to tackle at some points?
Not really. I think we were, like you talked about the last record, we wanted to make a video for every song. We actually recorded 25 songs for the last record, and half of them ended up being for this B-Sides record. So we tried to make a video for every song. We basically made one for every one on The Great Pretenders, and some didn't get released because they weren't good enough. But it was really important to us, but I think we also realized that we should never do that again.
Like, you've done it, and that's done. Now that's in the review. Yeah. It's really funny. Well, I'd still enjoy these. Of course, I bring up you brought Jon Theodore from Queens of the Stone Age into drum. I mean, that must have been an easy call, but is there any story there?
He recorded drums on the whole record, and so I didn't actually think he would tour with us and kind of be the fourth member, but I just said, do you want to? And he said, fuck yeah. And that was it, man. And he's on tour with us. It's great.
Feel like I need to take the chance. Is there a Queens update that goes along with this? I mean, do you all still, because now you've got two guys that's sort of splitting the time with the one band. Do you turn right around this and next year, the year after that?
Yes. there's no stopping, but also, we're also not getting into any Queen stuff for a while. So we have a long year ahead of us supporting this record and touring it and talking to folks like you.
Now, with all three members, and I can say four members now in other groups, I mean, it seems like it would be a logistical nightmare to make an album happen. Is that the case with Mini Mansions?
Yeah, I mean, but because it's true, right? And I understand it, and it is hard. But at the same time, it's not a 9-to-5 job. We're not clocking in every day, 365. So you find time to make a record. You write songs on the road, write songs at home, and then when we come together, we give it everything we got and make sure that we have enough time to promote and tour the record, and it becomes easy in that way,
Well, it's interesting because it so happens that this record falls on the 10th anniversary of the band, if I have my math rights and everything with
That's
that
true.
First EP, and sort of reading how critics have treated you since the beginning, it's almost like they always talked about it as a side project. But at this point, I mean, history has sort of proved otherwise on that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's been a little detrimental to our success. I really do, because I think it's been hard for people to take us seriously. But I do think actually with this record that things are starting to turn around and people get like, okay, this is the third record and they're not stopping and it's a real band. So I finally feel like maybe it's time for us, and people are putting that aside, no pun intended.
Well, it's just funny how I don't know. I guess it's almost narrow-minded to think, well, you can only have one main band, and anything you do outside of that has to be something else that's not your main band. But
totally. Well, I mean, I get it. The bands do like side projects, and they literally like just make a record and put it out, and that's it. Or maybe they do like 5 special shows. But we've been touring our asses off for years and years, and putting out a lot of music. So hopefully people, get that and understand and respect it.
I'll jump back to 2009 just for a second to, kind of get your gauge on that first EP. How does that one sound to you now? How does that one rest 10 years later for you?
Yeah, I haven't listened to it in a long time. Maybe like once every couple of years I'll put it on. It's interesting, man, because it's a completely different band. It's a completely different sound, different instrumentation. We were, I think, experimenting with something at the beginning, and now it's very realized and focused. So I still think it sounds just like us. It's just a totally different take on it. But I think that's kind of the Mini Mansions mission, is to like make whatever kind of music we want to make, as long as it comes out sounding just like us.
You mentioned that word experimenting. I'd love to know what it was like backing up Sparks a few years ago.
Dream come true. Yeah, I mean, they're one of our favorite bands of all times, and not only like idols for us as human beings, but like the way that I think their trajectory of kind of like they should have been the biggest band in the world, and they did have a lot of success back in the 70s and up until now, but I think they should have been a lot bigger than they ended up being. But they kind of did it their way and did it, and maybe some people didn't fully understand what they were doing, and I think that's kind of how it's been for us. And but they called us. We did a cover of their song Sherlock Holmes, and they heard it and called us, and we ended up having them guest at an LA show of ours. And then they called us and said, "Do you want to be our band?" basically, and we were like, "Yes, please." And I only actually got to do one of the shows, but Zach and Tyler did the rest of the touring, and I mean, it was amazing. It's amazing for sure.
Well, Michael, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Congratulations on Guy Walks Into a Bar. I mean, I really think you've done something special. We've been a fan of you in the past, and this one does something new and interesting, and that's not easy to do in 2019. So I appreciate the music and your time.
Thanks so much, Kyle. I appreciate your time and you digging deep and asking really great questions.
Oh, thanks, man. Hopefully, we'll see you around there on the road on the tour.
Hopefully, see you soon, dude.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Hey, thanks to Michael Shuman. Mini Mansions, the brand new album is called Guy Walks Into a Bar. Hey, before you get out of here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening from right now. Again, whether that's at YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your favorite podcasts from, including iTunes and Apple Podcasts. where I hope you do give a rating and leave a review as well. And then after that, you can head to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every weekday. ConsequenceOfSound.net has your music and film news. You can find me at Twitter at Kyle Meredith and Facebook/Kyle Meredith. And that does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.